$15.32. That's how much my curiosity cost me. Most people go their whole lives without ever being able to put a number on it. Hell, I know I have. But this time, for my own amusement, I made it a point to keep track.
What you just heard was the opening paragraph of a novel, and not just any novel. This one right here, The Midnight Ruby 2nd edition, which released today as of recording. For anyone new here, my name is Zach. I'm an independent self-published author, freelance editor, and cover designer, and this book has been a labor of love for the last 8 months, as I've been going back and writing a 2nd edition of my first novel. For anyone who's hung around the channel or who knows me personally, you certainly know about The Midnight Ruby 1st edition. That was my very first book that I spent 6 years working on, from 2016 to 2022 when it was finally published, and I was proud of it when it came out. Still proud of it in a way, just for getting it done, and that was the first book. It was my gateway into writing. That was the first baby step. But over the years, I know I could do better, especially after my second novel, which was a murder mystery called Somebody to Hate, that released February of last year. After that one, I knew I could do so much better because I had learned so much more as an author, which eventually led me to working on this, the 2nd edition of The Midnight Ruby, which was a page 1 rewrite of the original book to create basically a whole new story. I say a whole new story, elements are different. The core plot line is intact. It's exactly the same as it was across both editions, but it's how we get from major plot point to major plot point that is vastly improved and enriched. For those of you who have read the first book, you certainly know this. The main problem with it is that it's overly descriptive. Some people really like descriptive books, other people like to theater of the mind it for themselves. Literature is a subjective medium and every reader has their taste, so you can't please everybody, but I definitely agree with the negative connotations of the term descriptive, especially in relation to the first edition of The Midnight Ruby. It was because I was so overprotective of the idea and the world that I was envisioning, I wanted to show you, the reader, everything that I was creating exactly as I saw it, which, as you can imagine, led to paragraphs upon paragraphs of unnecessary description that almost paused the plot. And I go, okay, here's some story, here's some story, here's some story, time out. Here's a description of a floor plan of a room. Okay, you got it? Okay, time back in on the story. That's not how good writing is done. And so again, taking everything that I learned off the first book, applying it to the second book, and learning a wealth of knowledge on that one, I've taken everything that I've learned up to this point and put it into the Midnight Ruby 2nd edition. And so today, on release day, again, this is time of recording, this will be going up on either Friday or Saturday for you. Today I'm recording this on Tuesday, May 12th, which is the release day of the book. It's out everywhere, hooray! And if you'd like to get it, by the way, I'll have a link in the description below. I also put up a video a couple weeks ago detailing how I made this cover completely from scratch and completely for free. So if you are in any way interested in seeing my design process and my artistic thoughts going into that, you can go check that one out. I will put a card up. It'll be in one of these corners. But bringing us to today, on release day, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the inspirations for this version of the story. To give you a frame of reference for the inspirations I'm about to mention, The Midnight Ruby at its core is a 1940s hard-boiled film noir style story. That's what it was always meant to be. The first edition ended up being somewhere in the neighborhood of a caricature of that kind of style. It was more of a parody than the actual thing itself. With the second edition, I wanted to change that. I always wanted to do a full-blown noir, and that is what this version is. As I've been saying to everyone I've been talking to, this book that just released, this is how this story was always meant to be told. All that to preface the kinds of inspirations that I'm pulling from across multiple sources and multiple genres, some of which may be very surprising, but all of which have their unique wrinkles in the way that they play into each other in this book. So let's start with the classics first. Before I wrote this book, I wanted to brush up on the history of the noir, so I read one of the all-time classics, Double Indemnity by James M. Cain. James Cain is often considered the father of the Roman noir as a genre, and I have seen that book taunting me on shelves, begging for me to read it for years now, and I finally did, and I was blown away by it. I absolutely adore it. It's a very thin book, which you can see I've got on my shelf behind me. This one right here, very thin, but very terse, very densely packed with incredible storytelling. To give you a brief overview for anyone who doesn't know, double indemnity, those words, is an insurance term, which is apropos because the main character, Walter Huff, is an insurance salesman who has an affair with this woman and sets up the perfect murder to get double indemnity for her husband so that they can be together. Anyway, it is an excellent book. I know they made a movie as well. I haven't watched that yet, but I can't recommend the book highly enough. And one of the main ways that Double Indemnity inspired The Midnight Ruby is there are a few moments which I think you can kind of only get away with, at least in this kind of timbre with the noir genre, where the main character, Walter Huff, speaks directly to you, the audience. He says, now you might be thinking this, and this about the situation, to where he intentionally breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to you, but you don't feel like there's any diminishing of the story. You don't feel taken out of it at all. You feel like you've been brought into it, and you are sitting in a room with him as he's explaining his thoughts to you. That was one of the earlier inspirations for the Midnight Ruby 2nd edition, and another big one was arguably what some consider, at least historically, the greatest movie of all time, Citizen Kane. For anyone who's been watching my reels that I've been putting up on Instagram or the shorts that I've been putting up here on the channel, you'll know in my mini-series where I'm casting the characters in the Midnight Ruby if it was going to be made into a movie during the golden age of Hollywood, I picked Orson Welles to play the antagonist, Bruno Morton. And that is in no small part due to his domineering presence in Citizen Kane. The overall style of that movie and the presence that a character like Charles Foster Kane has was a massive inspiration on the Midnight Ruby, as well as Orson Welles' portrayal of that character, and of course the infamous Rosebud ending. That in particular ended up inspiring a plot point near the end of the Midnight Ruby. Not to spoil anything, of course, because I definitely want you to read the book with fresh eyes, and I certainly hope you will, and I hope you enjoy it if you do. But if you read this and you've seen Citizen Kane, I think you'll see the similarities in how it wraps up. Not that I'm taking anything intentionally from Citizen Kane. I'm not replicating anything from that ending. That's not how that's done. When I say inspired by, I mean the kind of tone, how that movie wraps up, how you get all the people walking out of the Xanadu estate, never having figured out what Rosebud as a term means and how it sums up Charles Kane's life and how that related to his last words. Similarly, in the Midnight Ruby, there is a plot point around an item that you could say is like a rosebud, where everyone's trying to figure out what happened to it, where did it go, how does it relate to the main events of the plot. And that's as far as that relation goes. Double Indemnity and Citizen Kane were the two big classical inspirations, but there are a lot of more recent inspirations, which come from very unlikely sources, considering the genre that this book is written in as well as the time period. It's set in the 1950s, but the other inspirations for this book came from, believe it or not, video games. 3 in particular. Number 1, Fallout New Vegas. Number 2, Nobody Wants to Die. And number 3, the Mafia series. Now, if you've been playing games for any number of years, you'll know, of course, Fallout New Vegas is an absolute classic. And if you know anything about the Midnight Ruby, you know it's set in Las Vegas, so there's one-to-one things there. There's one character in particular whose name I altered slightly from the first to the second edition, which now serves as a nod to one of the prominent characters of Fallout New Vegas. I'll leave you to figure out who that is, but if you played the game, I think it'll be obvious. And all that's meant to do is just to give you a kind of idea for a voice of this character in my head, just an interesting sort of parallel. Nobody Wants to Die is a recent one. It's a game that I saw a trailer for years ago, never knew when it came out. I found it on Steam and got it and played it and loved it. And it actually resulted in a massive addition to the book that I was not expecting. Again, not to spoil anything, but the first book was written entirely in third person. The second edition of the book is written in first and third person. As you heard from the beginning, the narrator is a curious guy by nature, and so what he ends up doing in the first chapter is going and tracking down all the major characters from the book and asking them about what happened on a particular day. The question, which is on page 1, which I think is a definite hook point, is he asked everyone who's involved the same question: what happened at the Midnight Ruby on opening night? And it was this game, Nobody Wants to Die, that ended up resulting in the creation of this narrator character. In the game, Nobody Wants to Die, you're playing as Detective James Kara in a far future neo-noir New York City. And because it's a game and because you're playing as this character, you're locked into his perspective, you're in first person, you get to hear a narration of his train of thoughts, much like you would in a book, as in Double Indemnity. And it was just the way that that character, or rather that voice actor, delivered his lines that was so inherently tied to the genre that made me want to go, okay, well, if this book were to have a narrator, what would that look like? How would that influence the story? Things like that. That was the beginning of the idea, and slowly over time as I developed it more and more, it ended up becoming the best thing that could have possibly happened to the book. And then the last game of those 3 that I mentioned is the Mafia series. I say the series because there's a bunch of them. I only played a little bit of the first one, but I really enjoyed it, and this one doesn't have a huge overarching book impact on it, but the main character in the Mafia series, I forget his name, doesn't matter, he's a cab driver, and that inspired something for an additional character that was not present in the first edition, but is in the second for reasons that we don't have time to get into. But that's the relation there, that the new character is a cab driver as well, which is a nice nod to that classic game series. And so those 5 things are some of the biggest places where I drew inspiration from as I was writing the Midnight Ruby 2nd edition. There is a lot of history in this book. If you count the years I spent working on the original, if you just look at the Midnight Ruby as a title, this book in my hands right here has been just shy of 8 years in the making. As I mentioned before, the first book took me 6 years. This one, I've massively cut down on my production time. This one only took me 8 months start to finish. When I got the idea of doing a 2nd edition versus now having the published copy in my hand, 8 months. So I'm very ahead of schedule. And so putting all that together, it is just shy of 8 years that I have been working on the Midnight Ruby. And now I am so happy to be done with it. Not to say that I haven't loved every minute working on it, because I have. The first one I was immensely proud of when it came out, just for the fact that I had written a book at all, good or bad. That was the achievement in and of itself. But now, having written a book that is so much better than the first, both on the outside and the inside, the cover looks better than the first. I've got better headers that match the fonts on the cover. I've got stylized scene dividers that are, if you can see that, if it'll focus, it's the tiny ruby. It's a tiny wireframe ruby, which is on the 1st edition, the hardcover at least. It's also on the back of the book right there. And so having that done, that is so much better in every conceivable and measurable way, I am beyond proud of it. And again, more than that, I am so beyond thrilled to be done with it. I'm ready to move on to other things, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about those in the future of the projects that I've got coming down the pipeline. But that will do it for now. I just want to kick back and rest on my laurels for about 2 minutes, because that's about all I can stand before I have to get back to work again. Thank you very much for watching. For those of you who have read the 1st edition, for those of you who have bought the 2nd edition and the 1st edition, thank you so very much. It means the absolute world to me that you would devote to me even any of your money, but more than that, your time. I know that reading a book is no small task, especially in this day and age. But the fact that you would carve out time from your schedule to read something that I wrote, just, I can't tell you how much that means to me. And so if you would like to become a reader, and if you'd like to read the Midnight Ruby, the 1st edition, you can't get it anymore. I've killed it, it's dead, don't go looking for it. Maybe it'll be worth something one day in 100 years, long after I'm dead. There's a limited number in circulation, so if you got one, hold on to it. It might be like a Beanie Baby at some point in the future for an investment. And so if you would like to read the Midnight Ruby 2nd edition, I will have a link in the description below that'll take you straight to the Amazon store page. Also in the description, I'll have links to my website where you can go there, you can learn more about all the books that I've done and see all the covers that I've done. And if you need an editor or a cover designer, everything is right there on the services tab. You can see how I can help you. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do pick up the book, let me know what you think down in the comments below if you read it. And if you do read it, I hope you enjoy it, even the slightest bit as much as I enjoyed writing it. So today is the day for celebration. Now the Midnight Ruby is released. I'm officially hands-off, and I'm so glad to be done with it. So I've got more, again, coming very soon that I can tell you about what I'm working next. But until then, I will see you next time, and as always, I will see you in the next one.